Hello, everybody. This is the Cincinnati Herald podcast. I'm your co-host, John Alexander Reese, digital editor of the Cincinnati Herald. And now I want to introduce my co-host, Andria Carter, media consultant for the Cincinnati Herald. How are you doing today, Andria?
Fine. How are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. And I also want to introduce our circulation director, Wade Lacey Sr. How are you doing today, Wade?
Doing good. Good evening, everyone.
All right. And then I also want to introduce our intern, Zoey Becker. How you doing, Zoey?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
Great. And today we have a very special guest with us, and it is the president and CEO of the Center for Closing the Health Gap, Renee Mahaffey Harris. How you doing, Renee?
I am doing well this evening. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you all.
No problem at all. Today we're going to be covering a few topics that's going to be online and also in the print edition. So the first topic I would like to cover is Lloyd Austin. And if you don't know Lloyd Austin, you definitely should. This past Friday, retired African-American General Lloyd Austin is now in charge of the U.S. Department of Defense. This past Friday, the Senate confirmed Joe Biden's Secretary of Defense pick, making General Austin the first African-American to serve in that key strategic federal government leadership role. Andria, what are your thoughts on this pick?
I think it was a wise choice that Biden made. I think he's the best example of the quality of experience that has been in place with each person who has held that position. I think he knows what he's going to do, and I think he's going to bring a unique insight to the Defense Department that's never been seen before. And I think that's a good thing because after the last 4 years, I think we need quality adult knowledge in the room instead of playtime.
Definitely. Wade, what are your thoughts on Biden's pick?
I think it's a good choice. More importantly, I think it shows Biden's commitment to diversity with all these appointments.
Definitely. Zoey, what are your thoughts on this?
I think he's a great pick. He's worked with Biden previously, so they already have that connection. He has a really impressive background, as Andrea said, and I think he's going to be a great leader.
Renee, what are your thoughts on Biden's choice?
I agree with everyone's comments in that President Biden's selection is representative of his, acting upon the campaign statements he made to ensure that his cabinet reflects the population and people that elected him.
Definitely. And let me just also add that Austin has pledged to overturn several discriminatory bans on military service put in place by the previous administration, and that his confirmation vote was cleared by a 93-2 margin. So, moving on, unfortunately, this past Saturday, baseball icon Hank Aaron died at the age of 86. Aaron, who broke Babe Ruth's all-time home run record on April 8th, 1974, was not just a baseball legend, but also a hero to superstars. Andrea, what are your thoughts on the passing of Hank Aaron?
I think it's sad because he helped to make baseball great. I remember as a kid watching him play a little bit here and there. I didn't truly understand what I was seeing at the time, but as I'm a big fan of the sport, and at certain times it can be boring, and at certain times it can be poetry. Hank Aaron brought that legendary ask of poetry to the baseball, especially along with diversity, which you don't see anymore because we're not playing baseball anymore. So he's going to be sorely missed.
Truly, definitely. Wade, what are your thoughts on the passing of Hank Aaron?
We lost a great one. When you think of Hank Aaron, you think of Willie Mays, you think of Jackie Robinson, Satchel Paige, those type individuals that will live on forever and ever. So we did lose a great one with that.
Zoe, I know Hank Aaron is definitely not in your time frame, but what are your thoughts on the passing of this baseball great?
I think he was probably one of the most influential baseball players of all time. And I think his voice and his impact on the baseball community is going to be remembered for a long time. Um, I think that he was such a legend because of his accomplished career and his barrier-breaking strides toward racial equality in baseball. Um, yeah, I think it's definitely a really sad loss.
Renee, what are your thoughts on the passing of Hank Aaron?
Well, I think that his death marks the death of a legend, who I hope his example of how he stood for what he believed in, and how he rose to the level of his legendary status. And I hope that that can influence the future of Black baseball players in our country. And I know we've seen kind of less participation in baseball leagues for our young Black boys in our communities, and I'm hopeful that his legend can live on with our students learning the history of who he was and what he did for baseball.
I just want to also add that Aaron received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian award, from President George W. Bush back in 2002. Our next topic is the Board of Elections is now a COVID-19 vaccination site. This past Friday, Hamilton County added a new centralized COVID-19 vaccination center at the county's Board of Election campus in Norwood. Shots will be administered at the board's 2300 Wall Street facility, featuring plenty of space and surrounding infrastructure. Renee, what are your thoughts on this?
I think the more sites, the better. I think that we have a while before we get to this place where, well, I don't know. I think it's an interesting question. I think that the more sites, the better. Um, we need to make sure that there's equitable distribution of the vaccine, and I know that there are efforts to look at where people are, where people live, and ensuring that transportation is not a barrier to getting a vaccine. And so the more locations that we can locate that people are already familiar with, I think the better for dissemination and accessibility. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's still a great deal of vaccine hesitancy. And the only way that we overcome that hesitancy is by working collaboratively with our Black physicians, clinicians, and researchers, so that information helps take the place of many of the myths and real concerns, so that people have the facts to be informed and make informed decisions on why the vaccine is what we all must take to ensure that we get to a new normal and get back to some normalcy of life, and get through this pandemic. So many people are working hard to make sure that those vaccine locations make it simple and easy to get to. And I think that site is definitely one of those opportunities, because it's well known, because many people visited those sites during the election process.
Definitely. Andrea, what are your thoughts on this news story?
I think it's a brilliant use of a safe space. People are, especially since this last election, people have been motivated. They know where this place is. They've been there. They had a positive experience, no matter who they voted for. And there's a feeling of positiveness with the Board of Election. And I think it's just a great PR campaign of, your vote was safe, so you can be safe as well when you go get the vaccine. I think it's a brilliant, subtle move on the health, on whoever decided to do that. It's a great move. It doesn't matter to me where I can get the vaccine, as long as I get it.
True. Wade, what are your thoughts?
I agree. The more locations that are accessible is a great idea, putting it there. I guess the most interesting thing that comes to my mind is what just happened with the election. And they showed that if you make the locations accessible to a lot of people, that they will use them. They will come and take advantage of it. So I see going forward that this same type of thought process to getting them out to different locations, making them available to the CVSs, the Walgreens, and the places like that is a good starting point to getting as many people as possible the chance, the opportunity to take that vaccine.
Yes, of course. Zoe, your thoughts?
I agree. I think it's a great first step. I think that if we're gonna eventually want to administer it to as many people as we can, we have to use all the resources available. And I think the Board of Education is a great structural resource to use.
Definitely. So I want to bring out the last topic, and that's why Renee is here. And she's going to talk about COVID-19 and vaccine education in Hamilton County. So, Renee, please educate us and all the viewers.
Well, I don't know that I'm going to educate everyone. I think that we have learned a lot since we knew that there was going to be a vaccine. I began talking with reporters with CNN, and they were focusing on the fact that all the data was really indicating that Black people in particular were extremely cautious, and frankly, many statements have been made that people across the spectrum, and that means all incomes and professions, were saying, I don't know if I want to take this vaccine. I don't want to be the first. Since then, I will say, based on data that we will be releasing next week for Hamilton County, that feeling of hesitancy still persists. It looks much different than it did in May, where people were more willing. There's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of concerns around the past administration, but I think more importantly, really not understanding, or really needing to better understand the facts of our history relative to what happened with Tuskegee, Henrietta Lacks, the hysterectomies on Black women without medication, up to recent examples, even in our own county, relative to research that further affected the mistrust. And so there's an overall, mistrust for a variety of reasons, as even indicated in the New York Times article, where a Black physician expressed her own experience in a health system. And so the only, as most people have begun to talk about the hesitancy, the question is, well, how do we get through the hesitancy? And I think that our Black physicians become critical, but our Black physicians, along with all of us, having information that we can share with one another that is based upon facts, and understanding what the vaccine is and isn't, understanding the composition of the vaccine, understanding all those things that we keep hearing, things, because we have social media that propels all kinds of stories and concerns that cause people to further question, I don't know if I want to take the vaccine, but I think we're making some progress on improving the information. I think the campaign that we have launched in collaboration with over 60 organizations, the We Must Save Us campaign. And some people have asked, like, why does it say we must save us? Well, the Black people and brown people in this nation are being disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. And so we must make sure we are educated. We must make sure that we inform and help each other get to a place where we do all that we need to do to protect ourselves and our families, by understanding that even when you get the vaccine, doesn't mean you stop wearing a mask, doesn't mean that all of a sudden you start socializing more, or really not being as cautious and conscious of washing your hands. Those questions keep being asked. People assume that, okay, I've gotten the vaccine, that means I can do something different. I'm concerned about level of vaccine and the frequency of vaccine dissemination happening in our community. And it's not as a result of any of us, it's a result of the federal government actions to not increase the vaccine distribution and development. And so now we sit in a place where, our health departments and the over 2,000 entities that can disseminate the vaccine have small quantities that they're receiving. And so we hope by middle of February to, be at age 65. But we now, as I was a part of a briefing today with Hamilton County commissioners, and, the commissioner was talking about the fact that they got, less than 1,000 vaccines, but they have thousands of people yet to vaccinate. So we all have to be patient with each other. And as people get more information and are saying we're taking the vaccine, we want to make sure that the vaccine is easily accessible. And so the earlier conversation about the Hamilton County Board of Elections is one of those steps. But the notion that 70% of people in this country are going to need to be vaccinated for us to get to a level of immunity to protect all of us, that's a lot of people. And so we must be as informed as possible so that we can share the best information that we have with one another and ensure that we all get vaccinated, and understand that it may take a little bit more time than anticipated, but that all of us will get a vaccine.
Definitely. I just wanted to ask you just a couple of questions, though, because recently Hamilton County has been labeled purple, and that means it is a public emergency. So, what are your thoughts on that? And when do you think we can get out of the purple range?
Well, I do know for a fact that we are going to get out of the purple range tomorrow.
Oh.
We're going to go to red, and again, I'm not the expert, but what I do understand from Dr. Kesterman and Dr. Moore, or Commissioner Kesterman and Dr. Moore, our health commissioner, that we had a percent of the variables that make you be in purple, and our numbers of hospitalizations and incidents of COVID have come down. But the reason that we're coming out of purple is because our hospitalizations have come down. We still have high rates of COVID, but because we've come down in some of the other indicators that caused us to get to purple, like those three indicators that caused us to get to purple, we've come down in those numbers. So red means we still have high levels of COVID-19 in our community. And so that means, unfortunately, I know we're all fatigued, but we must continue to do those three things, which are masking up, social distancing, and washing our hands. If we continue to do that well, and I think that, your question, I think, is like, how do we come down from purple? Well, we do the things to be preventative so that we can protect us from the spread. And if we can do that better, I think we had a spike because of the holidays, right? And so, if we can remember to protect ourselves and each other, we hopefully won't spike to purple again. And that the more people that are vaccinated, and specifically because they started with vaccination of nursing homes, and with our more vulnerable populations, who 87% of our senior vulnerable populations were the largest percentage of those deaths, right? And so now with vaccines focused, and there's been lots of controversy on where that focus should be, the decision of the governor to focus on our most vulnerable individuals who are seniors in nursing homes and assisted living facilities being vaccinated first is definitely going to improve those mortality rates, as well as the impact of COVID-19 in a person's body.
Well, that was a fascinating discussion. I want to thank you very much, Renee, for giving us all this very important knowledge about the vaccine and everything.
Well, thank you for having me. We must work together because we know that our information comes from each other. So the more informed we are, the more that we can inform each other and save our lives.
Definitely. And I also want to thank Zoey and Wade and Andria for also being on this podcast. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy being here.
Okay. So make sure you check out all of these stories and other stories on our website at www.thecincinnatiherald.com. You can also check out our print edition, which is coming out in a couple of days, which is sold at your local Kroger, UDF, Walgreens, Joseph Beth Booksellers, and at select service stations. Make sure you follow us at the Cincinnati Herald on Facebook. You can also follow us at Cincy Herald on Twitter and Instagram. You can also follow us on YouTube. Just search for the Herald TV. And we're also on TikTok now, believe it or not. Just search for us at the Cincinnati Herald. And like I said before, folks, thanks for listening. And remember to mask up, social distance, and wash your hands. Thanks. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.